Hello and welcome to another episode of Business Velocity. We are so excited to have you with us. Today, we are going to talk about removing things from your business that aren't efficient, that aren't working anymore. What are they? How do you identify them? And then how do you get rid of them? So, without any further ado, let's dive in. Woohoo!
Woohoo.
Woohoo! Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. It is lovely fall.
It's cold and rainy here, and I am ready for the sunshine.
Yeah, we had a couple months of no rain, and now it has been like 3 days of half an inch of rain every day, which is good. I got some grass seed planted, so
There you go.
hopefully that helps the deal. But the big news over here on the Evolve front is that Hannah and her lovely partner spouse Chris are going on a giant adventure for the next 2 weeks and get to
Yeah,
go to New Zealand and ride horses with the hobbits.
yes, exactly. Yeah, I feel like we've kind of dropped it a couple of times on here, but yeah, we're super excited. We're leaving this weekend. And this episode will come out after we get back, I think. Yeah. But no, we're so stoked. I'm so grateful to be able to take this time away and come back to all these fun things that we have going on at Evolve. Lots going on. Lots going on.
Lots
But
going
honestly,
on.
like it's super exciting. It's stuff that you and I have been like working toward for like a year and a half. So
Yeah, exactly. It's one thing we talk about or I think about quite a bit is we support a lot of entrepreneurs, we support a lot of businesses in their own growth goals and the things that they're doing, and we often consider ourselves like business builders. Like what do we do? Well, we help people build business. We help them kind of take the burden from their shoulders and put it on the business so that the business can truly grow and that they can thrive as a leader. That's really what we're all about. And this is an old school like 1980s, early 90s reference of I always feel like the Rogaine guy who's like, I'm not just the president, I'm also a member. And so, who are we to help people build their businesses if we're not also doing that on our side and also pushing the envelope and also finding our own entrepreneurial spirits and ways of growing things. And so Hannah and I have been on a 3-year journey, our 3-year strategy, to build the five facets, to, put this podcast out in the world, to do a lot of the things that we're doing. We're kind of coming to the end of that. And it's really fun and impressive to think about all the things that have happened over the last 3 years and how much we've built and how many more people are invested. When we started, it was just Hannah and I, and now there's, as of like the end of this week, there's now like 12 of us. And we've grown 40% this year, and we've really pushed in a lot of ways. And that part feels super exciting. But to your point, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. And it feels really good and really exciting. And as many of you are listening to this, it's the turn of 2025 into 2026 in that time frame, and we're really excited for what the next 3-year plan looks like for us and what that means for Evolve. And we know that you're all in that mode as well. And obviously, we're business builders, and we want to help you all support and do that. We want to help you with your growth. Because it is an important time. It's important to know what's the top of the mountain, where are we going, how do we get there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, this is going to come out right around Thanksgiving. So, yeah, right around when people are starting to take time with their families and kind of time away from work. But as we all know, when we actually have downtime is sometimes when we get our best ideas. So, if you're listening to this and taking some time away from eating some delicious food and thinking about what you want the next month and then year to look like, we hope that you've benefited from these episodes. Definitely go back and check out our rest of our season three. It's been really fun so far. But today we have another fun topic for you. Dave, what are we talking about today?
Well, tied not disparate from the strategy conversation we were just having, this idea of, especially at the end of a year, you come into the year with the best intentions. You come into the year thinking this is the year that we're going to grow. This is the year that we're going to do all the things that we've thought about doing. Let's go from 3 to 3.2. Let's go from, 5 to 10. Let's do this. We can do it. At the end of the year is when reality sets in and you think about like all the things you carried. And a phrase I've heard a lot actually as we've started to engage folks in planning for next year and planning for the next 3 years. We do a lot of strategic support for clients. I've heard this from several entrepreneurs, and it rings true in many ways, which is, man, I just don't know if I can do this again next year. Like it just sounds like I'm tired, right? Like there's so much happening, and there is this like fatigue that shows up around this time of year because It feels like you're at the sprint at the end of a marathon. You're on mile 24, and now it's like, run faster, man. You can do it. And it just feels exhausting. And so today we're talking about truly what strategy is, which isn't planning. It's not action planning. It's not additive. Strategy is often what do we get rid of? What do we stop doing? What do we prioritize? And so we're talking about this concept of what we call like raise the floor, right? What's the stuff that is keeping us? What's the stuff that's limiting us? And that can be beliefs, that can be products that we have, that can be processes that we're pushing up a hill or are too complex. But how do we identify and see the things that are keeping us from being able to make that momentum growth in the way that we want to? And how do we actually build the stomach or the fortitude to be able to say, actually, you know what? If we stopped doing this, I'd actually have more energy to do the thing that actually works for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I am a big fan of getting rid of things that aren't efficient, getting rid of things that aren't impactful. One of the clients I'm working with right now, great team, awesome team. They've organically developed some internal meetings where I've been like, yeah, do we need this? Do we need to be here? Can this be an email? And it is nice to really realize that you can relieve yourself of some obligations rather quickly and it be really beneficial. So, yeah, I'm excited to talk about this today.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, one analogy we like to use a whole lot is a lot of people are looking for at the end of the year, like, what are we going to do next year? They're looking for business systems. Like, there's a lot of business systems out there. Five Facets is one of those systems, but there's a lot of them. And one of the things we often say is, business systems, tools, approaches, these things that you're looking for, kind of what I would refer to as like silver bullet solutions, right? Of like, oh, if we just hire this thing, or if we just bring this thing in, or if we just built this product, or if we just hired this person, like then everything would get better. But a lot of times those solutions are just kind of like organizing a messy closet, right? It's a lot like, well, let's just get our stuff in order. And the truth is, that's good. That's a good thing. That's a great thing. Those plans are helpful and useful. But what they don't do is elevate your fashion. They don't eliminate the things that are clutter. You're not taking things out. You're just putting things in an order. Do we do it by color code? Do we do it by season? Do we do it by size? How do we organize it? It's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, like getting organized is a good thing. But in order to know how do we get organized, what should we organize for? Which is truly like the planning part of strategy. You have to do the strategy part first, which is what's the most important stuff for us to be thinking about? What's the most important stuff? How do we actually elevate our fashion before we organize our closet? And let's organize our closet accordingly. And I would imagine as seasons are shifting right now, I had a great, day a couple of weeks ago where I was like, oh, it's season change time. All the polos and whatever in my closet became oh, let's get this out, let's get this out. But when we do that, I almost always shed 10 to 15 things that I didn't wear for an entire summer that I thought, oh, I'll wear that again. And it is that cutting and letting go that actually feels good. Like I actually enjoy that part quite a bit because it feels like, oh, now I'm managing less stuff. Even though there's nostalgia or there's like, oh yeah, but I wore that shirt when dot dot dot. Right? We do the same thing in our business. It's like, yeah, but we put a lot of effort into that. Like I worked really hard on that process. I worked really hard on setting this up in ClickUp. It's like, yeah, but it's 15 steps long. Nobody follows it. And we spend a lot of time fighting and pushing to get people to do it. What if we made it 5 steps instead of 15?
Hmm.
What's the most important stuff that we're doing here? And it's a really difficult question to ask. And it's a difficult question to answer sometimes. And I think the linchpin difference is asking the question, what's it for? Right. And if we know the answer to what it's for, it makes it a lot easier for us to eliminate it. So, quick experience for the people listening to this podcast. Take 30 seconds and think about this. If we said, okay, next year, what we want you to do, like think about your revenue target for next year. What are you trying to build towards? So, if it's $1 million or if it's $3 million or 10 million, whatever your number is, pick that number. Now just add a zero, right? Or double it. We want to go from 1 million to 2. We want to go from 2 to 4. We want to go from 4 to 8, 8 to 16, right? Just double that number. And then instead of saying we want to do that in a year, do it in 3 months. We're going to do that in a quarter. We're going to do that in 3 months. What would you have to do? What would you have to stop doing to actually do that? And that framing gets you out of incremental, linear, minor movements to then see, oh man, if we were to do that, we'd have to cut this entire offering that we have. We did this 6 months ago. We cut something that became a distraction that wasn't earning the revenue that we wanted it to earn, and we shifted it into something else. And it was a really hard decision. A lot of people were frustrated with that, or it felt like, yeah, man, but we spent a lot of time doing that. It's like we did. We spent a lot of time. I mean, we filmed a whole thing, filmed a whole course, took a lot of effort, built a 50-page workbook. We did all this stuff, but we realized, like, man, we're spending a lot of effort on something that truly isn't connected in the way that we want it to be connected. It's not accomplishing the things we wanted to accomplish. Does this serve us in the long run? Does this serve our clientele in the long run? What's it for? It's not
Mhm.
actually helping us achieve the thing. So cutting it, as much as that felt difficult, also felt liberating. And that's part of raising the floor. The reason we say floor is, what's the thing that's keeping us down at a low level versus raising us up to the ceiling? How do we get to the ceiling? The way you get to the ceiling is actually by raising the floor.
Yeah, I want to come back to what you just said about like difficulty and liberation because like something I know you say a lot is that people don't fear change, they fear loss.
Mm.
And so it is a kind of a, dare I say, triggering event when you do axe something, when you do remove a system or a process or a client or a service offering, because someone's going to lose something. However, that isn't the bad thing if you can show them the liberation that's right behind it. So I think that like I've experienced this with a couple clients this year too. It's all about how you intentionally go through this change. Talk to your team about how like yes, we made the thing, now it's going away. Or yes, you've put all this work into this one client, but the client is dragging us down. We are going to let them go. Thank you for all of the work that you've done. Honor the fact that like they put all this effort into whatever it is, process, person, or otherwise, and then also show them the liberation that is going to come on the other side of that. Because what they're going to get stuck in, what people are going to get stuck in is the loss. So we have to like reiterate that story of liberation in order to help them move forward. And it's not easy because I know like me as someone who is such a doer and a builder, it's not easy to see the thing you put time and effort into go away. But when I get reminded that what's on the other side of this is more time for whatever else I have to be doing because I'm getting rid of a client or I'm getting rid of a meeting or whatever process I've been doing that's not efficient, then the tension starts to release from my shoulders. Then I start to realize like, okay, this loss might be temporarily a little painful, but I'm very excited to have this time back in my week, this capacity back in my workload, because I have all this other stuff that's going to come up and be the new focus. But exactly to what you're saying is like, you got to remind them of that strategy. Like, what's the next focus because of the thing that we're letting go?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a term that gets thrown around a lot of MBA programs, and not to go MBA program on anybody here, but the idea of sunk cost,
Right.
right? Which is, hey, we put a lot of cost in this, and that can be time, energy, effort, dollars. But the truth is, sunk cost, like the fallacy of the sunk cost is that it's sunk, right? Like that we didn't actually gain anything from it. I mean, the truth is, if you think about like the program that we cut, we learned a lot. There was a lot of things that we learned. Like it was actually a gift to our future selves to say, like, yeah, we put a lot of time, energy, and effort in that. We did a lot of things, but we also now know that, man, okay, I'm not going to get distracted like that, or I'm not going to pursue something like that outside of our goal. And that's a learning that I took from it. So was it worth it? Right? Like sunk cost in and of itself is the idea of like, well, we put effort into it, so we're more reluctant to not let go of it because we've sunk cost into it. But sunk cost in and of itself is truly a fallacy. The only sunk cost is if we don't learn from it and we don't lean into it. So the idea is, well, if we're cutting something, if we're raising the floor, or I was talking to a marine boat dealer the other day who runs a dealership in the Northeast, and we were talking about this. I was like, doing the exercise I just did here. I was like, all right, think about your next year. If you wanted to 10x what you're doing, if you wanted to go from whatever 3 million to 30 million, what would you have to do? And in that, we started identifying, oh, well, we spend like we have this entire boat line. As much as we like it, it's really difficult to sell. It takes a lot of time, energy, and effort for our folks to do it. the brand is great, but man, we spend a lot of time doing this and the margins are really small. Where our biggest margins are actually in winterizing boats and storing them. But we spend all this time trying to sell boats in the summer as opposed to pitching and selling the winterizing and growing that part of our business. I was like, exactly, right? We often know what the answer is, but we're so tied up in forcing forward the floor that we don't just say, you know what, we should just cut this boat line entirely, and we should really design and move towards lifting up the winterizing and the storage. Because the truth is, that's where most of the margin is. It wouldn't be that much effort for us to actually double our profit over here. How often do we pause to say, what is the floor? What is keeping us from doing the things that we're supposed to be doing?
I was thinking about how, with the internal example that you're giving of the program that we cut, we got a new team member out of that effort. Like we got to really work
Yeah,
with and dig into one of our, like awesome, yeah, new team members. And she's now like, super involved in a lot of other things that we do. So there's other wins that's going to come with that time invested in whatever the thing is.
100%. I'm sure you see this a lot. You do a lot of process work,
Yeah.
right? You're doing a lot of work with teams on kind of building out processes or documenting processes or either inventing or modifying or clarifying certain processes. I would imagine you run into a lot of, hey, there's 15 steps in here. Does it really need to be 15 steps? Like somebody created it somehow. And the idea is like, well, yeah, but we've always done it this way.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. I get to see not only like the strategy creation of whatever new process or adjusted process I then end up helping to build, but I also get to see it from like a very weedsy, words on the page. How do we instruct someone to do this thing perspective, which is very fascinating to then sort of see it actually fully implemented and fully documented. A couple things that I think would be beneficial for our listeners is definitely don't be afraid to scrap old process. Like you're saying, like sure, it was created that way at one point. Well, now you've got more team members and AI and, X, Y, and Z. I'm sure there are other resources that you can employ to adjust this process and make it better. So research and study how can you make the process better with the resources that you have now available to you? And also, is this process truly needed to accomplish whatever the ultimate output is of the team? And that can be like how you track your team's capacity. Do you have to know down to the hour and minute how available they are? Or do you need to know the number of projects they have on their plate because you know that every project is generally about, 10 hours a week or something like that? So I do think that you can alleviate some convoluted process by asking the question of, does it have to be this complicated in order to still produce the ultimate results that we want? I also think that people get really bogged down in being very prescriptive in their process documentation when
Hmm.
they could employ their core values and guiding principles into process documentation. So, for example, if you know that your company needs a policy around meetings, well, that policy can very quickly, say like, well, if we are doing this, then we do this kind of meeting. That is what is included in the meeting. This is when we have it. This is how long it needs to be. But then there can be a lot of complication into, okay, well, then who attends that meeting and who's hosting it and for which clients is it for, X, Y, and Z. Well, you can have like guiding principles for like your meetings. Like instead of asking a client how often they want to meet, why don't you say one of our guiding principles is that we lead, we don't ask. We say, hey, this is how we do things. So I think there's a way to kind of avoid super prescriptive process by putting front and center these are the behaviors around the process that we're talking about. These are the behaviors that we have for our product development team so that you don't have to completely spell it out for every single one of those people how to do every little tiny thing in their job. Because ultimately, being super prescriptive is not going to be scalable. Things are going to change. Maybe certain resources that you use for the process or certain people that you use for the process, those things just change over time. But core values, guiding principles, those things can last quite a while. So I would say if you're currently revamping process or thinking about doing that, make sure that you have good core values, good guiding principles for the team at large, and then whatever department or process you're talking about, and then write the process and make sure that the process doesn't get just so convoluted that it's like kind of hard to follow and it's a lot of mental calories to go through each little step in the thing.
Yeah, I appreciate what you just said because I think true to our experience and the experience we see in a lot of clients. I mean, I've had clients that say, "Oh, we need an SOP for that. We need an SOP for that," and the SOP becomes the solution to whatever the problem is, which sometimes is true.
Sometimes it is.
And then sometimes you have 417 SOPs, and you get mad at somebody for not following one of the 417 SOPs, and I think that's a tiny bit unfair.
And you also don't remember what's in the SOP. The other hard thing about this is like, yes, you can write out so many beautiful process documents, but if people can't retain what is being given to them, then how useful is it truly? So I do think that's also a very viable option or a very viable question to sit with is have we written ourselves into a black hole of mental exhaustion?
And or like are our SOPs so long, so complicated, so vast that nobody understands it, nobody can make it work, right? Like we often
Yeah,
advocate for 3 to 5 steps at most, right? Like how do we keep it as simple as we possibly can so that it can actually be executed? And of course, there's a lot of nuance and a lot of specifics and et cetera. And industry matters if you're in manufacturing or you're in a space
yes,
where there are just literally thousands of steps to do what you need to do. We get it. But how do you break it into compartmentalize and how do you identify what's absolutely necessary? Is this essential to do what we're trying to do? And if it's not, be ruthless in the elimination of it. So
absolutely.
from a process perspective, but we're also talking about that from looking at your business as a whole. So two kind of quick things maybe to end with here is think about the future. Think as we enter planning season here, right? Like think about the future of your organization, your business. How big do you want to do? What are you trying to accomplish next year? Make it bigger than you feel is feasible. Cut the timeline, and then ask yourself, what would we need to eliminate in order to accomplish this? And what would we need to augment in order to accomplish this? That process alone will help you see, oh my gosh, we've been spending so much time on this thing. We've been trying to push into this new geographical region and it's just not working. We just need to cut it and go into the thing that works and amplify it, right? We need to
No
work
one
on.
can remember what the SOP is or follow it very well. Let's get rid of it and make it simpler.
Exactly. It's like we have to be willing to say, let's be done. Let's
Yeah,
be
and
done.
100%. And I'll throw out one more thing to maybe take away along with your other two is don't cut training. I do think that people oftentimes, especially with small teams, it's like easy to forget that like continuing education is so impactful. So instead of maybe documenting every little piece of someone's job or constantly trying to make sure everybody's doing things the way you want them to be done or the way the industry needs them to be done, invest in the training of your people. That's going to help collective language, shorthand, be really efficient and smooth. And then, you can keep your SOPs very efficient because people know the nuance of the job that's expected of them. People know what to look for when things are being removed or added because they're all trained on the same programs, softwares, product lines, things like that. So I would add a third one of just like, don't cut continuing education or make a place for it.
But know what you're educating on.
Yeah,
Raise the
100%.
bar, right?
Yeah.
Strategy is just as much about elimination as it is about what we're focusing on. So as you come into the year, do that. As always, we have lots of resources and tools and practices and approaches that we can support you in your process with. So don't hesitate to connect with us. Thank you for listening. Happy Thanksgiving and all the fun things. Hannah, any favorite Thanksgiving dish that you'd like to share?
My mom's green bean casserole, and we have a family recipe for baked pineapple. So good.
Baked pineapple. Green
Mhm.
bean casserole, so is a favorite for sure. It's basically just like salty, creamy goodness. with a little bit of crunch.
Yep.
What else is there in life? We growing up, my mom would make like 3 batches, not one, because
Yeah.
that's 70% of what most of us would eat on a regular
Well,
basis. So absolutely
also,
sure.
yeah, but you and your brothers are also like 7 feet tall, so you
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
got
we're
one
also
casserole
not
each.
small humans.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Gentle giants. Gentle giants, we like to say. Well, cool. Well, thank you, Hannah. Thank you all for listening. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Yeah, next one season recap, so definitely check that out. See you next time. Thank you for joining us on Business Velocity. Today's insights are just the beginning of enhancing your business's momentum. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also explore our framework at theevolveddifference.com. And remember, the time is now to take these strategies and apply your learning and achieve velocity. See you next time.